This video takes a look at what lies at the heart of collaborative science. To get started, it's helpful to remember what makes the collaborative science approach unique.
When I reflect back to applying for a science collaborative more than 8 years ago, I can see how much we as the whole reserve have grown, but especially myself, in understanding the collaborative process, especially how one would engage the multiple end users before you even start the proposal project to make the effective pieces that are going to be used for changing people's feelings about their natural environment and the people's decisions about what they're going to do. Really, it's not just science for science sake. Yeah, I used to be kind of repelled by it. Like, we're just trying to get some science done here. What are you causing us to have to add all these additional things to check boxes? And now it's much more real. And effective.
At the heart of the collaborative science approach is the mindset and principles. Embracing them is critical to achieving responsive, inclusive, and impactful science. The collaborative science mindset is the perspective with which we approach this work, particularly relationships, and the principles are the ways in which the mindset is put into practice. The collaborative science mindset and principles were developed alongside the NERRS Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Justice Working Group, and draw on our experience working and learning alongside collaborative science project teams. Naming the mindset and principles is critical to ensuring we stay focused on what matters in this work and have a foundation to return to regularly as we continue to refine our approaches to collaborative science. So what does this mindset look like? Team members are mindful that equitable relationships are the bedrock upon which co-creation of knowledge can occur, and they approach their work with respect, inclusivity, humility, and patience. Everyone involved, scientists, practitioners, and community and Indigenous partners, is considered an expert in their own area of work and sphere of influence. Everyone involved must also maintain a thoughtful orientation to curiosity, learning, appreciation of everyone's contributions, and recognition of each person's or partnering entity's unique strengths, not just stature or affiliation. It means investing in long-term relationships, keeping egos in check, making space for others, and having confidence in, but also a clear understanding of the limits of one's contribution to a project. Lastly, it involves becoming aware of and being sensitive to the power dynamics within a project team that can arise from gender, race, culture, seniority, discipline, differences in degrees or education levels, sector affiliation, control over project funding, position, and responsibilities within a project. Team members need to be willing to talk about and change these dynamics if they are unhelpful or restrict the collaboration. The goal is to build trust through transparency, competency, and by sharing responsibility and accountability.
To me, the collaborative science mindset begins with the recognition that we are working on a management issue and trying to apply good science to that management issue that requires the input and understanding of end users and stakeholders that are interested in any management activities or decisions. And it recognizes that those end users have valuable input, expertise, and a range of priorities that need to be taken into account to understand and best attack the issue at hand.
What we've touched on here is the kind of thing you need to tend to, because it can make or break the work, specifically your ability to achieve the level of use and impact you're striving for. Getting comfortable in the mindset in particular is a work in progress. It takes time to develop, and this effort requires ongoing learning and attention.
I don't think that you could really collaborate in a sincere way in 6 months or a year and wrap up a project. So I think it let us lay some really strong foundations. And the more we return to the site with our end users and stakeholders and partners, the stronger our project is. And that's, of course, because of the collaborative science mindset. and how important it is to engage these partners throughout and to really take the time to not rush anyone, to be transparent and go at their own pace.
The collaborative science principles are how we think about putting the mindset into practice in a project. And we found that there are a few core principles of collaborative science that help distinguish it from more traditional approaches. The first one is to respond to management needs. Collaborative science projects recognize the diversity and complexity of the socio-ecological system in which they take place. The needs of historically underrepresented communities may differ from those perceived by the broader resource management community, and those needs should be incorporated into a responsive project. The second principle is to engage with intended users before, during, and after the project to inform project design, execution, and products. Projects pursue equity and project-appropriate representation among users and interested parties so that all who are involved reciprocally benefit from their engagement. In the third, tailor processes, collaborators acknowledge that there is no one-size-fits-all approach to doing this work, and they accordingly tailor project structure and management to the unique contexts of the need and project partners. And the final core principle is to create relevant and usable products. Team members create project data, information, and products to be accessible and usable. Teams also recognize that users may have a range of needs related to accessibility, knowledge, or data sovereignty. We expect that there are going to be some pieces of this that you're more familiar with than others. Keeping in mind these principles is going to be important in each of your collaborative science efforts.
Yeah, I didn't come from a science collaborative background. I was intimidated by writing the collaborative process section and almost intimidated by the terminology like stakeholders and end users and stuff like that. Now it's integrated. Like I used to think of a project research idea in the end and then work back to the beginning and then have a linear relationship to get there. And now I do that, but then I go forward, I take a step back, get some feedback, loop back, go forward, loop back, and then I get there. And it's not just like going linearly, it's going backwards a lot in the sense of like, are you evaluating as like, is this the goals we want to do? Is this what people actually want besides what I think they want? So it's an iterative, engaging process that we just incorporate more systematically instead of just doing it without as much thought and process in place. So so I see a lot of value in it because it makes things a little bit longer and harder, but it makes things better and more useful to your target audience, to your end users, the intimidating word.
Our hope is that by articulating these components of the collaborative science mindset and principles and hearing from a few teams, we now all have a common starting point and inspiration for sharing and learning from one another. Thanks.